Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is spiritual self-defense. This is my weekly psychology lecture, currently being done on Facebook only, Facebook Live, but I'm going to also record the audio for a podcast. Okay, so what is spiritual self-defense? Well, before I answer that, I have to say, what is existence first? Existence first is the name of my business, not really life coaching. I would really call it thought management coaching. Okay, why? Because our mind is constantly going, and as the most intelligent species on this planet, I think that we have the capability to actually minimize our suffering. There's a lot of suffering that we go through that's a result of our own mind and the powers of our own mind, right? So it's about time that we take the powers of our mind and use them to live better, happier lives, okay? So I have three things that I want to talk about, three topics. I'm going to start off talking about this concept of polarization and object relations, which is also related to like parenting styles. Then I'm going to talk about locus of control, which that's going to be the bulk of the talk today. And then I'm going to wrap up with a little thing about mindsets, okay? Now, who am I? My name is Robert Nelson. I've been working in the field of psychology for over 8 years now, and been attending self-help seminars on the weekends. I used to be a math and computer science major in college, and so what I bring to the field of psychology is a very analytical way of thinking. Okay, that it's not seen very much in this field, but you'll see what I mean. All right, let's start with the big news, which is for many people in the United States, especially California, we've been given this order to stay in our homes so that we don't spread the coronavirus. This has resulted in a lot of panic, which I have humorously named Corona Chaos until this gets figured out. And so let me just read, because we're constantly bombarded by all of these messages, okay? So part of spiritual self-defense, part of defending our spirit, defending our own mind from the world out there, is knowing how to defend ourselves from communication that comes at us, okay? Part of this is this idea of taking apart the communication from others. That idea, I have to give credit to Arash Dibazar for that. Very, very intelligent guy. Now, I'm going to read the exact wording from the website of the county of Santa Clara, and then I'm going to read something from Wikipedia, and you're going to see a very funny connection, okay? So the order, I'm reading here, the order of the health officer of the county of Santa Clara, directing all individuals living in the county to shelter at their place of residence, except that they may leave to provide or receive certain essential services. Interesting wording there, like you may leave, like I'm the one who can tell you where to go, or engage in certain essential activities and work for essential business and governmental services, right? That it says, directing all businesses and governmental agencies to cease non-essential operations at physical locations, prohibiting all non-essential gatherings of any number of individuals. And it's just ordering cessation of all non-essential travel. And it's written in all capital letters, which that also emphasizes it, right? It's like shouting. All right, but take that wording, take that, and now I'm going to read to you a page from Wikipedia on parenting styles. Okay, there's 3 or 4 parenting styles. The most like strict one is called authoritarian, okay? So listen to this. Authoritarian parenting style is a restrictive, punishment-heavy parenting style in which parents make their children follow their directions with little to no explanation or feedback, and little to no focus on the child and family's perception and status. Okay, now this just made me crack up, because the way that this order to shelter in place is written is almost exactly like that, right? Parents who make their children with little to no explanation or feedback and focus on the child's and family's perception and status. All right. The goal of this style, at least when well-intentioned, is to teach the child to behave, survive, and thrive as an adult in a harsh and unforgiving society. Uh, so this is pretty funny, right? But here's what's more concerning. Children raised by authoritarian parents tend to be conformist, highly obedient, quiet, and not very happy. These children suffer from depression and self-blame. All right, so we have to take apart the communication. We have to start seeing that when the government is going to issue these things, it sets a frame. Okay, communication is heavily influenced by frames. So by their communicating in a certain tone, it's unspoken, right? So they don't say it out loud. They're not like, all right, right now we're going to speak to you guys like your children. You may not do this. You may not do, right? They don't come out and say it, but it's implicit in their message and in the tone of the wording and in the all capital letters that they use, right? So what does that do? Well, in human psychology, anytime someone sets a frame, if the other person buys into the frame and responds to it, then they're acting from a certain role. So now it becomes an issue of role playing, right? So if one person's going to come in like very strong and kind of like authoritarian, then that could cause a polarization where the people at the receiving end of that message then become very like rebellious or resentful, okay? And I see that happening exactly. So that would be lesson 1 of today's lecture, is this principle of what is the frame of the communication and how is it causing people to respond in almost an automatic way. Oh, Dr. Pepper's making me burp. Okay, excuse me. So, in the interest of keeping a balanced viewpoint, I'm going to also read paragraph number 6 of the order, which actually is an example of the better parenting style, which is called authoritative. Now, it's a change in just a few letters, authoritarian versus authoritative. But authoritative is the word that psychologists chose to describe a different type of parenting style, which is, as I quote Wikipedia, characterized by a child-centered approach that holds high expectations of maturity. Authoritative parents can understand how their children are feeling and teach them how to regulate their feelings. Where is this? Authoritative parents are usually not as controlling, allowing the child to explore freely. Where was the part? Set clear standards. There's a part about kind of explaining, like giving like reasons or explanations for your decisions. Okay, and that's expressed in paragraph 6 here. So that paragraph, going back to the order, sounds like this. It says, due to the outbreak of the COVID virus in the general public, which is now a pandemic, according to the World Health Organization, there is a public health emergency throughout the county. Making the problem worse, some individuals who contract the virus have no symptoms, which means they may not be aware that they're carrying the virus. Because even people without symptoms can transmit the disease, and because evidence shows that the disease is easily spread, gatherings can result in preventable transmission. Scientific evidence shows that at this stage of emergency, it's essential to slow virus transmission as much as possible to protect the most vulnerable and to prevent the healthcare system from being overwhelmed. Now, to me, that's the gold nugget in this whole thing, right? It's unfortunate that it's buried down several paragraphs here, but the tone of this paragraph is very different from the tone at the beginning. Okay, so you can see there's two different tonalities, but I mean, which one is going to be covered by the news? It's going to be the first paragraph that's in all capital letters, written from the authoritarian parenting style. Okay. All right, that's enough for that. Let's go on to locus of control. All right, this is going to be a very, very important very important topic. I do miss my office, by the way. It's not the same to do this lecture from home, but it's temporary, you know, and you gotta focus on what you can control and what you can't. That's the lesson right here of this point, okay? So locus of control, if you haven't heard the term, it's a term in psychology that refers to basically this distinction between things that you can control and things that you can't, right? Internal locus of control means like, oh, you can, like, it's within your, like, you believe that you can cause change. External locus of control means you're focusing on the outside, and it's, you know, you think that whatever happens, it's because of what happens, it's because of things that are out of your control on the outside, okay? So everybody in self-help right now is posting on Facebook, you know, oh, just, you know, focus on what you can control, okay? So that's the superficial level, right? But this is existence first, and we go very deep into these topics, and we understand the substructure, the structure and the substructure of these concepts. So why is it important, or how does this thing work? Okay, well, first of all, let's look at an example of someone who's doing it well. Someone who's doing it well is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if you're not already following Arnold on Facebook or Instagram, I highly recommend that you do. And the reason is that he lives by example. He's not one of the charlatans that just talks and talks and talks. He actually lives it. Like, I mean, look at his life. He was world champion bodybuilder at a very young age. Then he became a movie star. Then he became the governor of the state of California. Like, this dude just action, okay? So he posts all these videos. He's posting videos of him in his, you know, in his hot tub, just like, or he's in his kitchen feeding his animals or whatever. Like, he's like, stay at home, here's what you can do. Ride your bicycle. It's fine to ride your bicycle because you have social distance. Like, his focus is exactly what it needs to be, which is he's focused solely on what he can control. Okay? Now, funny story that you probably didn't know about Arnold Schwarzenegger is that when he was a teenager, he was serving his mandatory military service in the Austrian, I believe it's Austria, right? The Austrian army, okay? He was assigned to the tank program. He was driving these big tanks. And the tank program was like longer than a regular program. It was like 3 years instead of like 1.5 or something. And one day, Arnold had the tank at the top of the hill. Oh, I also have to say this. At this time, he was also training to be the world's best bodybuilder. And he had this kind of like, he had this deal where like this owner of a gym in Germany offered for him to like come run the gym or come work out there or something, right? And he really wanted to do this, but he was required by law to finish his military service in Austria, okay? So anyways, one day he's doing these tank drills, and they get to lunch break. Well, he parks his tank at the top of the hill to go on lunch break, but he forgets to put the emergency brake on. So when he comes down and starts eating lunch with all of his other soldiers, the tank rolls down the hill and crashes, right? This is Arnold Schwarzenegger. The tank rolls all the way to the bottom and crashes. Then the squad commander or whatever was like, Arnold, like, what are you doing? I don't really know if you're even fit for this program. Like, I don't know if you can even do it. And you know what Arnold did? He said, you know what? I think you're right. I think I should just be like discharged or something. I forgot what wording he used, right? But he's like, I think you're right. I don't think this tank program is for me. And he didn't do it intentionally. He didn't intentionally crash the tank, but that's what happened. Okay, so Arnold Schwarzenegger crashes his tank. Then does he get all negative about it? Oh man, I'm such like, oh, I just make these mistakes, and oh, how could I have done that? No, it's already happened. It's done already. So he then uses that to pursue his dreams. And then look what happened there. He became the world's best bodybuilder, right? Because he was able to go to Germany and work out at that gym. Okay. Now, another interesting thing, I'm going to tie this together too. I don't know if, I'm sure some of you have played, probably all of you have played the game of Tetris. which is that game where the blocks fall down from the screen and then they have different shapes and you like alter the shape until it gets to the bottom. When it gets to the bottom, then you can no longer change the shape, right? And then it starts building these layers. Now, what you may not have known is that scientists have been studying Tetris as a trauma minimizing tool. Okay, now what does that mean? It means people with post-traumatic stress disorder, when they play Tetris, it decreases the number of flashbacks that they have. And so that's really significant. And you might think like, whoa, like why is that? Like, so you just play this game with shapes, and it can actually help with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the answer is yes. The question is, well, what's the mechanism there? Like, how does this work? Okay, well, let me offer one way to look at this. Okay, I think Tetris is therapeutic because of this. Okay, look at what the game is. As this piece is falling down the screen, you have the ability to change its shape. Okay, you try to change the shape, but by the time it gets to the bottom, it's done. You can no longer affect any change on that shape. It's done, right? And it sits there at the bottom of the screen. Now, do you have time to start thinking about, oh man, I wish I had changed the shape one more time. Oh, I wish I did it right. You don't, because the new shape is already starting to fall from the top of the screen. And so it draws your attention immediately back to another thing that is within your control, which is changing the shape. Okay. Then you change that shape, it falls to the bottom of the screen, and then boom, another shape starts falling, right? And then so your mind is constantly it's conditioned to leave behind that which you cannot control, which is the shapes that are already at the bottom, and to focus solely on the shapes that you can control. Okay, so that's a lesson for life. Now we need to look at how we can expand that and how we can apply that to everyday life. Okay. Case in point, even though this new apartment complex is very nice and has a fitness room, the fitness room is now closed, obviously because of this whole virus thing. Now, that means I need to do my exercises within my apartment. And ironically enough, it was just 1 week ago that I sold all of my like home gym equipment, like 2 dumbbells, a chin-up bar, these like push-up handles, everything. So, as you would expect, my whole frame of thought was like, it's like, oh man, I really want that like chin-up bar. Of course, I can do push-ups and stuff on the ground, but like that chin-up bar is really, you can't just like go in the closet and then just try. I tried that already in the closet, and it's like, this thing's gonna break, right? So you really need that chin-up bar that like you hang from the doorway. So I started to catch myself in that negative, it's what I call like it's a thought loop, right? It's a negative thought loop. Like, damn, man, I wish I hadn't sold that. Like, if I only hung on to that for like another week, like, man, I wish I still had that, right? And so everybody has been there, right? You just get into these loops, right? And you just loop it over and over, these negative thoughts, right? So the problem there is that it's focusing solely on something that's outside of my control. So, let's. I think the point is, I could say something about the grammar, but that's like really, really advanced. Like, let's put it this way, okay? Whoa, there's a squirrel running all the way up the wall. Impressive. So let's put it this way. What did I choose to do once I realized that I was in the negative thought loop? Okay, here's how you get out of it. You take action, right? It's like in Tetris, when the piece has fallen to the floor and you move on to the next piece. You go on to a subject that you have control over. So, what did I do? I hit up my friend Henry, shout out to Henry, who buys and sells fitness equipment. Okay, I said, hey man, do you have any, it's a good friend, I said, do you have any of those chin-up bars that you can hang from the doorway? And he goes, of course I do, right? You want me to hook you up? And so there we go, problem solved. But I felt better after that, okay? Same thing happened yesterday. Yesterday I was like, oh, should I go for a run right now? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I might not sleep well if I go exercise right now because it's late at night, right? And you know what it's like to get into these internal debates, right? So once I caught that, right? Once I caught it, I was like, okay, I'm not in action mode. I'm just debating in my head. I said, I'm just gonna go run, right? So the sooner you catch it, then you can just get yourself out of it. Now, this is gonna happen a lot because we are now, a lot of us who have to work from home or are not working at all and just staying home, we don't have our daily structure anymore. And our daily structure is that guidance. That's the Tetris thing with, the new object falling from the sky that you need to put your attention on. And so, which produces a flow state. Now, if we don't have those triggers going on, then we cannot enter that flow state. So then our environment allows us, unfortunately, allows us to sit around and just ruminate and just rehash these things over and over, just totally spending the whole day thinking about things that are completely outside of our control. All right. All right. So we have to start noticing. That's what it is. We have to start noticing. It starts with awareness, right? This is real psychology. This is why I talk about, like, this is not what I learned in college. This is like real applicable psychology. Okay. How do you actually make this happen? How do you do this? Well, you have to become aware of when you enter a negative thought loop. Okay. Same way as when you notice that your car is drifting off the road. Like you need these triggers. You need awareness triggers. Okay. And so one way you do this is that, here's the secret question. So I said, get your notebooks ready or whatever. Write down this question, okay? Anytime you encounter a situation that's like potentially could throw you into that negative thought loop, you have to say this. You have to ask, what is this an opportunity for? What is this an opportunity for? All right, now here's a funny example. So before I lived in this apartment, just like a month or two ago, I lived in this other, I lived in a 4-bedroom townhouse with 3 other guys, right? All the same age as me, like about 30, well, I'm 32, but they're like 31. And all in tech, and all Caucasian, okay? I'm mixed, but like they were all Caucasian, okay? Now we stood out like a sore thumb in this neighborhood because we lived in North San Jose. And if you know North San Jose, it's the specific neighborhood we were in, it was 100% Asian. Well, I should say 99 because of us, right? 99% Asian, right? It was all Asian. It's very, very nice neighborhood. Every house was over $1 million, which I guess in San Jose, that's like peanuts, right? Everything's over $1 million now in San Jose. But it's a very nice neighborhood, but all Chinese, right? So one day we get a knock on the door. And I was home. One of my roommates was on the couch. So I went out and I said, hey, are you expecting anybody? And he goes, no, are you? And I said, no. Well, let's go see who it is. So I go downstairs and I open the door and it's these 2 older Chinese women. And they look at me and they look at each other first. Well, they look at me, then they look at each other, right? And like, I was the last person they were expecting to answer the door. So then they're like, oh, no Chinese? No Chinese? And I'm like, no, but what can I do for you? And they're like, Chinese? No? I'm like, no, I don't speak Chinese. And they go, okay, well, here. And they hand me this thing, right? When will the suffering end? It's like I don't know. It's probably from their church or something. Oh, it's a Jehovah's Witness thing. Okay. So anyway, so they hand me this thing, right? And I'm like, so my immediate reaction was going to be like, you're just going to come knock on my door and hand me stuff, right? Like, how do you know that I want this, right? And then I realized that's a low mindset. That's the awareness, right? Like, why would I get upset about that? I asked myself instead, I said, what is this an opportunity for? What is this an opportunity for? And I said, hold on. I said, thank you for this, but I have something for you. Because I actually have an answer to this. So I go upstairs to my room and I grab my wallet and I pull out a business card for Existence First, right? It's all black. It looks cool as hell. It looks all black and it says Mind Coach, Existence First, right? And I run downstairs, I hand this to him. I say, here, look. I said, go to YouTube. I said, I have videos that answer this question for you. Will the suffering end? I said, yes, it will end, and I will tell you how. Go on the YouTube. And I handed them my business card. and I felt like, oh, I felt so much better after that. You know what I mean? So it's this constant interplay between you and the environment, right? It's you and the environment. The environment's going to test you, and then you have to just you need to be like in ready mode. Like that's how you respond, right? The same way as in like physical self-defense, like martial arts self-defense, right? The environment comes at you this way, you need to react a certain way, and then when you can take the offensive, that's the best place to be in. Okay. All right. I think we can get on to mindset, and then if anybody has questions or comments, you can make them. But let's wrap up with this last section on mindset. Okay. Make it really brief. Okay, so there's not a lot we can focus. There's not a lot we can control. Okay, and of course we're in a situation. You know, I really do like the social media posts that I've been seeing from people that say like, well, there's two that I like. There's one that says, you know, let's recognize the people who are, you know, staffing the hospitals and the grocery stores. And so I like that post. The vibe is just good. And then the other post that I like is that post that people make saying like, our grandparents were called to go to war. We're being called to the couch. Like, it's not a big deal, right? And I like that post too, because it gives a lot of perspective. You know, if you really zoom out, okay, one of the most extreme cases would be the Nazi concentration camps, which Viktor Frankl talked about in his book Man's Search for Meaning. Now, that book is often quoted in self-help, and rightfully so, because that book is a very good example of focusing on what you can control. And in a situation like that, there's very little that you can control. The only stuff you can control is like the stuff of your mind, like the phenomena of your mind. And so, let's see. How do I want to connect this? Okay, so you know how I was talking about like the negative thought loops, and then recognizing it, recognizing the internal debate, the thought loops, and then transitioning out of that into action taking, right? That right there, that's the example. I think that's the big takeaway from today. Okay, so transitioning out of that into taking action. And why? Because it's like a self-perpetuating cycle. Either way you go, if you take a little bit of action, like let's say you decide you're going to vacuum, right? I vacuumed yesterday, right? That little action is going to make it that much easier to do another action, okay? And then it sort of snowballs, okay? That's what I mean by self-perpetuating. But it does the same. It follows the same pattern if you go the other direction. So let's say that you instead you don't vacuum. You just sit around and continue to think about like, oh, should I vacuum today? Well, maybe, but the day I usually vacuum is Sunday. Maybe I'll just wait till Sunday. And then it's just this. You get in this loop, and the loop feeds upon itself, and then you continue to stay seated on the couch doing nothing, right? So, Man's Search for Meaning is about how even in a Nazi concentration camp, this guy named Viktor Frankl, he was able to still focus on his will and his mindset and his ability to respond to the environment. He couldn't control a lot of what was going on outside of him, right? Couldn't control his conditions, right? But he could control. There's alliteration there. He could control what was happening in his mind, how he was processing the environment outside of him. Okay, and that's, to me, that's really the inner strength and the empowerment that I wanted to express in today's lecture. Okay, if there's any questions, you could type them now. I'll give a few minutes, and then put my song back on for a second.